Okay. Before I start, I feel the need to explain myself. First of all, I apologize if I sound like shit. I'm currently getting over a cold, so my throat is a bit messed up because of that. Second of all, I'm sure some people watching this are like, why are you doing another commentary on another E.L. James interview? You did one a couple of months ago and it sucked. You're right, my last one did suck. I didn't really explain anything, nor did I even look at passages from the book to explain why I thought the book is a stain on the face of literature. I basically just said it sucked and left it at that. However, there are two things that led me to make a commentary on this. One, this isn't an interview on a regular talk show. This interview was on MSNBC, Ronan Farrow Daily to be specific. I know there are plenty of people who claim that MSNBC is the left-wing version of Fox News, but the way I see it, even if that was the case, I really expected them to be better than this. Last I checked, even Fox News didn't hold an interview with E.L. James. Yeah, they did a piece on 50 Shades of Grey, but then so did everyone and their goddamn mothers by this point. 2. I feel the need to at least attempt to set right where I went wrong with my commentary on the other E.L. James interview. This would give me a good chance to do that. Third, I apologize for the somewhat crappy quality of the video. I found it on NBC News, and they're a real stickler about people downloading their videos, so I had to use my screen recorder to get the video for this. I also apologize for any Skype blips you may hear since I recorded it while I was on Skype and forgot to turn notifications off so you wouldn't hear that. Finally, don't worry, I will be giving you more to look at than a simple black screen. But enough of my talking your ears off, let's just get the shit started.
It's just beyond this door.
What is?
My playroom.
Like your Xbox and stuff?
It's important that you know you can leave at any time.
Why? What's in there?
I meant what I said. The helicopter's on standby to take you whenever you want to go.
Couldn't you just open the door?
Dear Lord, these two are so fucking wooden that I get the feeling actual planks of wood would have done a better job. Not that I can say it's their fault. I think this clip gives you a good taste of how poorly written the dialogue in this book is. Also, I think Mr. Dornan's accent is slipping.
The 50 Shades phenomenon. At the climax of those books' popularity, it was 2 books being sold every second in this series, for a total of more than 100 million sales. Unprecedented.
I'd make a crack about how the popularity of the 50 Shades trilogy hurt the sales of other good books, but I get the feeling there was very little market overlap. That said, it's still a goddamn shame that these women, and in some cases men, got sucked in and therefore didn't really bother taking the chance to read other books that were published in 2011 and 2012 that were genuinely good.
The trilogy has been controversial, derided by some as chick lit, but these are among the most successful works of literature of any kind of all time.
Okay, how many times has this kind of thing come up? So many fucking times stuff like this comes up where the only thing I can say in response is, hey, just because something is popular doesn't mean it's good. Seriously though, popularity doesn't equal quality. There can be a difference between books that are good and books we like. And not just books either. It can also apply to movies, TV shows, comics, web shows, video games, whatever. For example, I used to be a fan of the Southern Vampire Mysteries, also known as the Sookie Stackhouse novels by Charlaine Harris. They were far from the most well-written pieces I've read over the years, but I still enjoyed them, mainly because it presented a nice twist on vampire lore. I really can't say there was anything that made me lose interest suddenly. Granted, I read very few of the books. I just lost track of them at college and gradually stopped caring. As far as not liking well-written books, I found reading Wuthering Heights to be a chore. I can't deny that it was well-written and a great example of a gothic romance, but what killed it for me was that there wasn't a single character in that book that I liked. I can only assume that it was intentional, however, since it spends a lot of time going into why the relationship between Heathcliff and Catherine was unhealthy.
And now, it's looking to be a movie phenomenon, a red-hot debut projected for Valentine's Day weekend. Online box office site Fandango says it's already the fastest-selling R-rated film in the company's 15-year history.
I'm sorry, but I need to play this back. I love how there are some men in this crowd here and they all look extremely uncomfortable. One guy at least tries to smile for the camera, but you can tell it's forced. And the others don't even try to hide their discomfort. They're all like, "Dear God, get me out of here!"
This is all a big change for the woman behind the sensation. Turns out the dom of S&M Publishing, a suburban British mother, in decades-long marriage. Erica Mitchell, the woman you might know as E.L. James, is with us now. Thank you so much for doing this. I know that you are not in front of the camera a lot, and I know that you've been crazed with publicity, so I really appreciate it. It's an important story to tell because it has changed the world of what people expect from books, and this particular subject has changed so much.
To the detriment of readers and people who will forever view BDSM as a crazy thing, thanks to E.L. James presenting an abusive relationship as romantic, not doing her research when it comes to BDSM, and portraying the BDSM culture as consisting of people who are fucked up in the head, and that they're only into BDSM because they were abused. Christian Grey describes himself as having been in an extended dom-sub relationship with a woman for 6 years from the time he was 15. Basically meaning he was raped and abused from the time he was 15 to the time he was 21. And because of that, he sees this bullshit and abuse he's perpetuating as totally okay. It is not okay for him to do it now, and it wasn't okay for him to have been subject to it when he was a teenager. Newsflash, age of consent exists for a goddamn reason. The point is that he wouldn't have been able to truly understand what that kind of relationship entailed. I looked ahead a bit, and before someone wants to use the argument of he may have been from a different country with different age of consent laws, Christian Grey is American. Based on what I looked into, he never even left the US, and the lowest age of consent found in some of the states is 16. Given that he was born in Michigan but his adoptive family moved to Washington during his childhood, I looked up the age of consent for Washington. Age of consent is 16 there, and if someone who's at least 14 but younger than 16 has sex with someone who's at least 4 years older than the minor in question, the older party is guilty of third-degree rape, which is a Class C felony in that state, which means the maximum punishment that can be given for that crime in Washington is 5 years imprisonment and or a $10,000 fine. And guess what? She was never even charged. Let's just get back to the video.
But I want to talk to you about who Erica was before the 50 Shades phenomenon.
Erica was a very happy old woman working in television. So she's very uncomfortable being in front of the camera because she's much, much happier being behind it. And much more used to being behind it.
Then why are you agreeing to do all these interviews? I'm not even trying to be mean here. This is an honest question. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, stopping E.L. James from declining to be interviewed. There are plenty of writers and other artists out there who have created works that are famous all around the world, yet refuse to be interviewed. One example of such a popular author who refuses to be interviewed is Thomas Harris, author of Red Dragon, The Silence of the Lambs, and such. He hasn't given an interview since 1976, and I feel the need to mention that's from before he even wrote Red Dragon. His first novel was Black Sunday, which was written in 1975 and has nothing to do with the character of Hannibal Lecter. I can imagine that the popularity of the Hannibal Lecter series makes him want to stay away from the limelight, and there is nothing wrong with that. Some people are very private and just don't like the spotlight. There is nothing stopping E.L. James from refusing to be interviewed, so I'm honestly confused about why she's willing to spend so much time in the public eye if she's uncomfortable with it. I thought of two possibilities. One, she's trying to step out of her comfort zone. If that's the case, then I can actually applaud her for doing so. Or two, she secretly loves the attention but doesn't want to come off as an attention whore. I'm going to withhold my judgment and give her the benefit of the doubt because despite how I presented myself in my last commentary on an interview of hers, I don't want to hate her.
Well, I respect that. You told me when we first met the story of how this idea came to you, and it was somewhat unexpected.
Yes, yeah, I mean, it was, I wrote, this was originally written as Twilight fan fiction. I saw the film.
Practically everyone at this point has talked about this, so I really have nothing to add here. Skip.
More than 100 million copies sold, a dinner table conversation in every home around America for a time. How has it changed your life to be that prominent?
Well, I try not to be, which is why I don't like to be in front of the camera. I like my anonymity. I like to be able to walk down the street and nobody know that I'm there.
Yet she agreed to do this interview and even let her real name get out there. She must not be trying very hard. You know, I really wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, but honestly, she's just giving out more evidence that deep down, she really wants and loves that attention. She just goes into more detail about how she supposedly values her anonymity and describes how she's done more traveling since the books took off. Skip!
Now, there are people who say this isn't even literature. You know, when I tweeted about this segment, there were people chiming in saying, oh, how could you? It's so lowbrow. And yet, it has been transformative. It has essentially proved that there can be this kind of massive-scale literary work at this point. Are you proud of the books?
I think, yes, of course. I mean, I wrote them for myself, essentially. So I only had me to please, and I did. I think what's been extraordinary is that other women have picked them up and really adore them.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you were writing it just for you, then what reason did you have to try and publish your work? I've got a novel I want to work on. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't writing it for me, but I'm not writing it just for me. I believe that there are plenty of people out there who would appreciate my work. I write with the goal of entertaining people, not just me. That's why I want my work to be the absolute best it can be, because as a writer, nothing hurts worse than making readers of any of my work feel like I just wasted their time.
And it's brought women to reading. Only yesterday I got an email from a woman who was 47 who said she hadn't picked up a book since school, and she just read all 3, and that was amazing, absolutely amazing. So to do that, and I've had lots and lots and lots of those emails, has been really, it's been just awesome.
Implying that there weren't any women reading before they found and picked up 50 Shades of Grey. I'm a woman who's read plenty of good books, and I know plenty of other women who are also avid readers. And guess what? They're avoiding your books like the goddamned plague. I should be avoiding your books like the plague, but instead I'm infecting myself with this shit. I could be reading any other book, but no. I felt the need to read this book just so I wouldn't be left in the dark when other people complained about it, and also so I could rant about this book if I wanted to and actually know what I was talking about. Newsflash, Mrs. James, you're not some fucking messiah who's given the demographic of women readers a much-needed kickstart. We didn't need a fucking jumper cable. We were always here reading. If anything, you've kickstarted women into reading other books that have nothing to do with abusive relationships being glorified and romanticized. Congratulations! I hope you're proud of yourself, because now that your books have been out for a few years, people are going to look at this abuse and think that it's okay. I'd go more into this, but we'll get to that later. We'll definitely be getting to that later.
And yet, the counterpoint to that is there are those who say that because of the content of this book, it maybe even glorifies the abuse of women. There are some hashtags trending on that front. People on social media trending the hashtag 50 Shades of Abuse, $50, not 50 Shades. That's a campaign telling people to donate to stop violence against women instead of going to see the film.
I'm all for stopping violence against women.
Yet you wrote a book romanticizing an abusive relationship. Oh, but don't look at me. I've got evidence in the form of a study found in a fairly recent volume of the Journal of Women's Health. The study did have its limitations, namely it was a cross-sectional study involving the administration of a one-time-only survey and had no time-specific data about when the subject's reading of at least the first book in the series occurred relative to the health risks measured. Those health risks and warning signs consisting of violence victimization, including physical, sexual, and psychological abuse, and even cyber abuse, binge drinking, having sex with 5 or more intercourse partners during their lifetime, and signs of an eating disorder. However, despite the fact that correlation does not equal causation, it shows that there is some sort of relationship there and it's worth looking into further. Finally, even the study talks about why the relationship between Christian and Anna is abusive. Namely, Christian employs strategies typical of abusers, including stalking, he deliberately follows Anna and uses a phone and computer to track her whereabouts, intimidation, he threatens her with punishment and violence, including pressuring her into activities she is uncomfortable with, social isolation, he isolates her from friends and family, and sexual violence, he uses alcohol to impair her consent and intimidates and pressures her into uncomfortable sexual activities. In response, Anna experiences reactions typical of abused women, including constant perceived threat, for example, that Christian is trying to track her down, is angry with her and will punish and harm her, altered identity, Anna describes herself as a pale haunted ghost, stressful managing, Anna engages in behaviors to keep peace in the relationship such as withholding information about her whereabouts to avoid Christian's anger, yearning for health and normalcy in the relationship, and disempowerment and entrapment as her behaviors become mechanized in response to Christian's abuse. It even talks about how Twilight normalizes abuse. Twilight started it, 50 Shades is just adding to the problem.
This is essentially a passionate love story. I think if it was a book about abuse, then women wouldn't be reading it, women wouldn't be loving it. They recognise what it is about it.
Except that if it was a well-written book about an abusive relationship, and it portrayed it as the awful thing it really is, then people, regardless of gender, would read it. Case in point, Wuthering Heights. I didn't like it because there were no likable characters in my opinion, but I still appreciate it for what it is, and there are plenty of people who like the book because it portrays an unhealthy and abusive relationship and pulls out all the stops to let everyone know that this shit is not okay.
about the story that appeals to them. It's a very broken man, a very strong young woman who brings him out of himself and turns him round. So that's what the books are about. They're not about abuse at all.
Except the woman shouldn't have to give herself up completely in order to do that. Sometimes there are things that are broken beyond repair. The moment Christian raped her in Chapter 12 is the moment she should have given up and gone to the police.
And it does strike me, you told me when we first met, don't read them. But I was, of course, going through them before.
It's about men. I get very uncomfortable about it.
When men read it. Well, tell me about that. Why does it make you uncomfortable?
It's written for me. I'm a woman. It's great that other women read it. And the range goes from a little bit too young right up until they're into 95 years old. And that's great, but it's not written for men. It's a book for women. It's a fantasy for women.
Implying that guys can't enjoy stuff made for women and that women can't enjoy stuff made for men. Wait to be a revolutionary in your writing, you fucking bint.
That's it.
So I butted in nevertheless, and I was struck by one thing, which is how traditional the core story here is.
Absolutely.
That
it's Beauty and
the protagonist is a virgin even. It's conservative in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
She falls in love with the man that is the love of her life, and I won't spoil the conclusion, but it's very domestic in nature.
Dude, the fact that this whole thing involves a bastardization of BDSM and the fact that Anna actually graduates college shows to me that you have no clue what the fuck you're talking about. At least Anna graduated college, which is more than I could say of Bella Swan.
Was that traditionalism a deliberate goal?
I think it's a trope of all this romance novels. I mean, at its heart, it's a romance novel, and my early 30s was spent on the tube reading a lot of romance novels. That Joanna Lindsay, Catherine Coulter, Brenda Joyce, all of Elizabeth Lau. God, I could go on and on and on and on.
Allow me to just replay a clip of what I said earlier. Wait to be a revolutionary in your writing, you fucking bint. Next!
And yet there is the traditional magnet for controversy here, which is the treatment of women and the tension between you're saying this is about women, it's for women, it empowers women.
Yes.
And yet, for instance, we went out for questions on Facebook. Holly Renee wrote in and she said, how can you release a novel that so many people have read and which is now going to be a huge box office success that blatantly disregards the act of enthusiastic consent? Do you disagree with that characterization?
I completely disagree with that. There is enthusiastic consent throughout. It obviously shows that she hasn't read the book.
Allow me, then, to read a bit from Chapter 12 of the book, which I have called the rape chapter many times. To give context, this is after Anna sent an email, a joking email, saying it was nice knowing him after he gave her things to look up regarding BDSM. He responds by breaking into her duplex apartment! I'll only read certain excerpts since they're spread out over a couple of pages, and I highly doubt anyone wants to hear me read that much from the book. The first part starts at the bottom of page 135 to the top of page 136 in my PDF copy. I needed time to think, I whisper. I'm all rabbit in the headlights, moth in the flame, bird to a snake, and he knows exactly what he's doing to me. Think about what, Anastasia? You? And you decided that it was nice knowing me. Do you mean knowing me in the biblical sense? Oh shit. I flush. I didn't think you were familiar with the Bible. I went to Sunday school, Anastasia. It taught me a great deal. I don't remember reading about nipple clamps in the Bible. Perhaps you were taught from a modern translation. His lips arch with a trace of a smile, and my eyes are drawn to his beautiful sculptured mouth. Well, I thought I should come and remind you how nice it was knowing me. Next is from the bottom of page 136. He reaches down, and from his pants pocket he takes out his silver-gray silk tie. That silver-gray woven tie that leaves small impressions of its weave on my skin. He moves so quickly, sitting astride me as he fastens my wrists together, but this time he ties the other end of the tie to one of the spokes of my white iron headboard. He pulls in my binding, checking it secure. I'm not going anywhere. I'm tied, literally, to my bed, and I am so aroused. He slides off me and stands beside the bed, staring down at me, his eyes dark with want. His look is triumphant, mixed with relief. That's better, he murmurs, and smiles a wicked, knowing smile. He bends and starts undoing one of my sneakers. Oh no, my feet. No, I've just been running. No, I protest, trying to kick him off. He stops. If you struggle, I'll tie your feet, too. If you make a noise, Anastasia, I will gag you. Keep quiet. Catherine is probably outside listening to him right now. Gag me? Kate! I shut up. Oh, and starting on page 137, Christian has Anna drink white wine to impair her ability to consent or refuse. Are you trying to tell us, Mrs. James, that Anna gave enthusiastic consent in this section? Sounds to me like she was trying to fight him off and only relented thanks to the alcohol. Therefore, the only conclusion I can reach, along with some friends that I read this entire chapter to, along with TV tropes, is that Christian raped Anna in this chapter. You're the one saying that this book empowers women when it portrays abuse and rape as something romantic. Kiss my ass.
So there is enthusiasm.
And it is true, there are a lot of people who talk about this.
Yes, I know, and they haven't read it. So there is enthusiasm. It's Anna is enthusiastic. Trust me.
I am reading the book, motherfucker, and unlike my last commentary on another one of your interviews, I actually read portions from one of the chapters and gave evidence to back me up. As far as I'm concerned, you have given me no reason to trust in any of your arguments.
So, it's whenever anyone says that, I know, oh, you haven't read the book.
What was your biggest concern in bringing this to the screen when you sold the rights to the book?
I think my biggest concern was doing the sex. I didn't want it to be trashy and nasty and all of that kind of stuff.
Too late!
So that was I think my biggest concern.
The hype machine is in full swing now. Are you happy with how the movie turned out?
Yes, I am. It took us a long time to get there, but I think because there's such a passionate fandom behind it, I wanted to honour them, and this grew out of fandom, so I absolutely understand what it's like to be part of that.
Projection! Seriously though, I doubt her level of input in the film had anything to do with the fans.
And I wanted them to be as enthusiastic about the film as they are about the book, and that was really important to me.
You talked about what a long, hard road it was to get here. It's challenging for any author to see their vision brought to the screen.
Yes.
It seems like with J.K. Rowling and with yourself, in these rare cases of extraordinary leverage and power in the hands of the author, there's a new paradigm of just ensuring in the contract that you have creative control.
I can agree that it's good for the author to have some level of creative control in an adaptation of their work. It's something that can help keep the adaptation from becoming a bastardization. However, there has to be a limit. I'll elaborate on that in a bit.
I think I was lucky in a sense that because everybody all of the studios wanted the book, bar Disney, so I was lucky to be able to insert myself as a producer and actually use, as a producer, be involved in the whole process.
And how hard was it to fight that fight? How hard did you have to push?
I had to push pretty hard on certain things, yes.
There have been reports that, it was very confrontational on set, etc.
Well, that's wrong. It wasn't. So it's just the media making a story.
And here's where I get back to the mention of how there needs to be a limit to an author's creative control in an adaptation of their work. Read that headline. She can say all she wants about how the media just generated the story, but of course she's gonna say that when they're trying to tarnish her name. The damage has already been done, lady. Some people are going to take this at face value and assume that you're going to threaten to boycott the film just over some goddamn dialogue. When your dialogue is written like this?
It's just beyond this door.
What is?
My playroom.
Like your Xbox and stuff?
It's important that you know you can leave at any time.
Then maybe you should listen to their feedback.
So, no, it was hard in places, but you have several creative individuals in a room. Of course, the people are going to butt heads.
Implying that two writers can't come to a compromise or agree on something at the very beginning, which is complete bullshit, but go on.
And that's exactly what happened. But it's great that what we ended up with is what the fans will be pleased with.
Projection, projection, projection.
Sorry, hero. What, would you rather I just play back my projection clip again?
Now, one of the striking things about how the movie is being received is the Bible Belt is very, very excited. Some conservative communities really going after this. Ticket sales in Mississippi nearly 4 times what's expected, according to Fandango. What has 50 Shades taught us about tastes here in America?
That Twilight has molded and damaged so many young girls into thinking that abuse and stalking are a-okay, and that apparently physical and sexual abuse is just the next logical step and something you just have to deal with.
Women love a good love story.
Keep deluding yourself into thinking you made a good love story, lady. Twilight has damaged so many young girls through molding them into thinking that abuse is okay, and 50 Shades of Grey is just making it worse for those young girls who have grown up by the time 50 Shades was published. They go from, oh, he only tore the engine out of my car to protect me, to, oh, rape is sexy.
Yeah, and this is that.
Yes.
So on that front, I'll close with another question from social media. Can you see it with your mother? Was what one fan asked.
Yes, I could. Yes,
all right.
I would do it with my mother.
Wow, you have no shame at all, do you?
E.L. James, it's a real pleasure every time. And despite the alleged camera fear, you were extremely eloquent on this subject.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And good luck with the premiere of the movie. And, of course, a disclaimer, 50 Shades of Grey, product of Focus Features. It's also being distributed by NBC Universal. That's our parent company here at MSNBC. But this is a story that actually personally interested me.
Of all the things to report on, of all the fucking things to devote your broadcasting time to, you decided it was best to take the time to interview E.L. James to hype up the 50 Shades of Grey movie. Are you fucking serious, mate? Was it really that slow of a news day? I'll give you your answer right now. No, it fucking wasn't! You could have reported on ISIS and the hostage situation. You could have reported on the trouble in Damascus. You could have reported on the measles outbreak. You could have talked about the rebels in Ukraine. You could have even talked about the apparent murder-suicide at the University of South Carolina. To put it in perspective, this interview happened February 6th, a week ago at the time of this recording. A lot of shit went down. Farrow had so much other shit he could have talked about during his show, but he decided to devote his time to interviewing a hack writer. Way to show off your journalistic priorities, you fucking jackass! To close this off, I'm just gonna direct you toward an article on the Huffington Post written by Carrie Purcell, titled 50 Shades of Feminism, a response to E.L. James' 50 Shades of Grey. Allow me to also direct you toward a review of the movie by Lisa Wilkinson, absolutely tearing the film to shreds, shown on the Today Show this past Wednesday. Both links will be in the video description. That concludes this commentary. This is Gale Force 3192 saying thank you all for watching and have a nice day on the internet, everybody.